The massive space station called Harmony Prime floated in the dark between three star systems. It was built as a meeting place where different alien races could talk without fighting. Today, something special was happening. For the first time in 50 years, a new species was coming to meet the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zix Thala stood in the main meeting hall. Her blue skin glowed softly in the dim light. She belonged to a race called the Ethereal Collective. They were peaceful, beings who ate only plants and spent their time thinking deep thoughts. As the head of the welcoming committee, she felt excited about meeting these new creatures called humans. The council had been watching Earth for 50 years now. They first noticed the planet when radio signals started coming from it. The signals were simple at first, just basic sounds and pictures. But over time, they became more complex. The council learned that the beings on this planet called themselves humans. They lived on a world they named Earth. From what the council could tell, humans seemed like they might fit in well. They had built cities and created art. They had learned to travel in space, though not very far yet. Most importantly, they seemed to want peace. The council was always happy to welcome new peaceful species. Zix Thala looked around the great hall. Representatives from 12 different alien races sat in special chairs made for their bodies. The Sorok delegation sat in one corner. They looked like giant lizards that walked on two legs. Their green scales caught the light as they whispered to each other in their hissing language. Near the center sat the Vorthan representatives. They looked like living crystals. They could think and move. Light passed through their bodies, creating beautiful patterns. They were very smart and good at understanding science and math. The hegemony had sent 3 of their warriors. They were tall and strong, with thick gray skin. Unlike most council members, a hegemony sometimes fought wars, but they followed strict rules about when fighting was allowed. Other species filled the rest of the hall. Some looked like insects, others like birds. A few were so strange that humans would have trouble understanding what they were. But all of them were here for the same reason. They wanted to meet the humans. A soft sound filled the hall. It meant that the human ship was getting close. Zix Thala felt her heart's beat faster. She had 2 hearts, like all of her people. Both were beating quickly now, because she was excited. The main screen lit up. It showed a view of space outside the station. A small ship was flying toward them. It was much smaller than most council ships. It looked simple compared to the advanced technology the council races used, but it was flying smoothly and seemed well built. The human ship was called the UEC. Horizon. The letters UES stood for United Earthship. This told the council something interesting. It meant that the humans had learned to work together across their whole planet. This was good news, because many young species were still fighting among themselves. As the ship got closer, Zix Thala could see more details. It was mostly white with blue markings. Solar panels stuck out from its sides to catch energy from stars. At the back were the engines that pushed it through space. It looked very different from council ships, but it worked well enough to travel between star systems. The ship docked with Harmony Prime with a soft bump. Airlocks connected the two. Vessels. Soon the humans would walk through those airlocks and into the station. This would be the first time most council members had seen a human in person. Zix Thala touched a control panel. Her voice went out through speakers all over the station. "Honored council members," she said. "Our guests from Earth are now boarding the station. Please prepare for the formal meeting." A few minutes later, the main doors to the hall opened. 3 humans walked in. They moved differently than any species the council had seen before. Their steps were confident but careful. Their eyes moved around the room, looking at everything and everyone. The first human was a man named Captain Jake Morrison. He wore a dark blue uniform with shiny buttons and colorful patches. His hair was brown and cut short. His eyes were a color called hazel, which was a mix of brown and green. He stood straight and tall, like a soldier or a leader. Next to him walked a woman named Lisa Grant. She wore a gray suit that looked very formal. Her hair was blonde and pulled back in a neat style. Her blue eyes were bright and intelligent. She carried a small case that probably held important papers. The third human was Dr. Kevin Walsh. He was older than the other two, with gray hair and glasses. He wore simple clothes and carried a device that was probably for recording things. His eyes were wide with wonder as he looked at all the different alien species dot as the humans walked into the hall. Something strange happened. The room became very quiet. The Sorrox stopped their hissing conversations. The Vorthen dimmed their internal lights. Even the insect-like Clixer stopped clicking their MADIBLES. Captain Morrison stepped forward. He looked around the room with calm, steady eyes. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Command," he said. His voice was clear and strong. "This is our diplomatic representative, Lisa Grant, and our scientist, Dr. Kevin Walsh. We come in peace, hoping to learn about your great civilization." Lisa Grant stepped forward next. She smiled in a way that was meant to be friendly. "We are honored to be here," she said. "Earth sends its greetings to all the member species of the Galactic Council. We hope this can be the beginning of a long friendship." Dr. Walsh was too excited to wait his turn. He looked around the room with huge eyes. "This is amazing," he said. "So many different forms of life. I have 1,000 questions about your evolution, your cultures, your technologies." Ambassador Zixthala felt a little concerned. The humans seemed friendly enough, but something was wrong. The other council members were acting strangely. They were all staring at the humans in a way that made her nervous. She decided to start the formal meeting. "Welcome, humans of Earth," she said. "I am Ambassador Zixthala of the Ethereal Collective. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I greet you. Please tell us about your species and your world." Captain Morrison nodded. "Thank you, Ambassador. Earth is the third planet in our solar system. It has been our home for millions of years. We have built a civilization of over 8 billion people." A gasp went through the room. 8 billion was a huge number. Most council worlds had much smaller populations. Lisa Grant continued the presentation. "Our planet has many different climates and environments. We have hot deserts, cold poles, thick forests, and vast oceans. Over time, we have learned to live in all of these places." Dr. Walsh pulled out a small device and projected pictures in the air. The first picture showed Earth from space. It was a beautiful blue and green ball, covered with white clouds. The council members leaned forward to see better. "Earth is what we call a dynamic world," Dr. Walsh explained. "The weather changes a lot. We have storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, and floods. The climate has changed many times throughout history. Sometimes it gets very hot, sometimes very cold. Life on Earth has had to adapt to survive." The next pictures showed different animals from Earth. There were lions hunting zebras, sharks swimming in the ocean, and eagles flying through the sky. Each picture made the council members more uncomfortable. "Our world has many predators," Dr. Walsh said, not noticing the growing tension in the room. "These are animals that hunt and eat other animals. Humans evolved alongside these predators. We learned to hunt them and to avoid being hunted by them." War Master Corvin of the Hegemony leaned forward. His voice was deep and rough. "You evolved from hunters?" "Persistence hunters," Captain Morrison replied proudly. "Our ancestors could run for hours without stopping. They would chase prey until the animals became too tired to keep running. It was a very effective hunting method. The silence in the room grew heavier. Ambassador Zixthala felt both her hearts beating very fast now. She was beginning to understand why the other council members looked so worried. Humans were predators. In all the galaxy, no predator species had ever developed advanced civilization. They were always too aggressive, too violent, too focused on fighting to build lasting peace. But she had to continue the meeting. "Tell us about your society," she said. "How do you organize your civilization?" Lisa Grant smiled again. "Earth has many different nations. We estimate there are about 200 independent countries. Each has its own government, its own laws, and its own culture." Another gasp filled the room. 200 separate governments? That was impossible. No civilized species could remain divided that way. They would always be fighting wars. "But we have learned to work together," Lisa continued. "Quickly, we have organizations that help different countries cooperate. We share knowledge, trade goods, and work together on big projects like space exploration." Captain Morrison added, "We have not had a major global war in over 80 years. Most conflicts today are small and local. We settle most of our differences through talking and negotiation." War Master Corvin spoke again. "Yet you still maintain military forces." "Yes," Captain Morrison said without hesitation. "Every nation has some form of defense force. We believe that being prepared to defend ourselves helps keep the peace." Dr. Walsh pulled up more pictures. These showed human cities, human art, and human technology. But the council members were not really looking anymore. 3 months had passed since the humans visited Harmony Prime. During that time, the Galactic Council held many secret meetings. They studied everything they could find about Earth and its people. The more they learned, the more worried they became. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his quarters aboard the UES Horizon. The ship was still waiting at the edge of council space. Earth had sent supply ships to keep them fed and give them fuel. But the waiting was hard. Every day that passed made Morrison more nervous about what the council would decide. Lisa Grant spent her time reviewing diplomatic protocols. She had read every treaty and agreement the council had ever made. She wanted to be ready for any questions they might ask. But deep down, she felt something was wrong. The council was taking too long to make their decision. Dr. Kevin Walsh used the time to study the data he had collected about alien species. He filled notebook after notebook with observations and theories. He was so excited about the scientific possibilities that he barely noticed how long they had been waiting. Back on Earth, President Maria Santos met with her advisors every day. They had prepared celebration plans for when humanity joined the council. But those plans were gathering dust now. Instead, they were starting to make backup plans for what to do if the answer was no. On Harmony Prime, Ambassador Zixthala prepared for the most difficult conversation of her career. The council had made their decision. It was not the decision she had hoped for. She had argued for days trying to change their minds, but the other species were too afraid. The council chamber was full when she called the humans back to the station. All 12 member species had sent their highest representatives. This was unusual. Normally, only a few ambassadors would deliver news to potential new members. Captain Morrison, Lisa Grant, and Dr. Walsh walked into the chamber with hopeful expressions. They had waited 3 months for this moment. They expected to hear good news about joining the galactic community. Ambassador Zixthala stood at the center of the chamber. Her blue skin was dimmer than usual. Her voice was sad when she spoke. "Representatives of Earth," she began, "the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding your application for membership." Lisa Grant leaned forward. Her hands were folded carefully in her lap, but Morrison could see them shaking slightly. After careful consideration of all available information, Zixthala continued, The Council has determined that humanity cannot be accepted as a member species at this time. The words hit the humans like a physical blow. Dr. Walsh's mouth fell open. Lisa Grant's face went pale. Captain Morrison kept his expression calm, but his jaw muscles tightened. War Master Corvan of the hegemony stood up. His gray skin looked darker than usual. "The evidence is clear," he said in his deep voice. "Humans are a predator species with violent tendencies. Your planet is divided into hundreds of competing nations. You maintain large military forces. You have developed weapons capable of destroying your entire world. Furthermore," added the crystalline Vorthan representative, "your species shows disturbing aggressive behaviors, even in entertainment. You compete against each other in violent sports. You create fictional stories about war and conflict. Your children play games that simulate combat." Ambassador Zixthala looked uncomfortable as she continued reading from the formal decision. "The Council recognizes that humans may have peaceful intentions. However, your evolutionary background and cultural patterns suggest that violent conflict is inevitable. The safety of Council species must be our primary concern." Captain Norrison found his voice. "Ambassador, with respect, I think there may be some misunderstanding. Yes, humans have had conflicts in our past, but we have also built unprecedented cooperation. We have gone decades without major wars. Our different nations work together more now than ever before." The insect-like Clixer representative clicked his mandibles. "Yet you maintain weapons that could kill billions. You train soldiers in every nation. Your military technology continues to advance. These are not the actions of a peaceful species." Lisa Grant stood up slowly. "Honored Council members, we understand your concerns, but we believe they are based on incomplete information. Human conflict has decreased dramatically over the past century. We have international laws that limit warfare. We have organizations dedicated to preventing conflicts. We came here hoping to learn from you," Dr. Walsh added. "We want to share knowledge and culture. We want to help solve problems that face all intelligent life. Surely that shows our peaceful intentions." War Master Corvin shook his massive head. "Intentions can change. Your species may seem peaceful now, but predators always return to their nature. In times of stress or competition, you will become violent. It is inevitable." Ambassador Zixthala raised her hand for silence. "The Council has discussed this at length. We are prepared to offer humanity two choices." She paused, clearly unhappy with what she had to say next. "First, you may submit to pacification protocols. Our medical technology can modify your brain chemistry to reduce aggressive impulses. This would make you safe to interact with other Council species." The humans stared at her in shock. Dr. Walsh spoke first. "You want to change our brains? To make us different than what we are?" "The process is safe and effective," the Vorthan representative said. "We have used similar procedures on other species with aggressive tendencies. You would retain your intelligence and creativity, but lose your capacity for violence." Captain Morrison's voice was very calm, but there was steel underneath it. "And the second option? You remain in your solar system," Zixthala said quietly. "A barrier will be established at the edge of your space. No human ships will be allowed to leave. No Council ships will enter. You will be isolated until your species evolves beyond its violent nature." "How long would that take?" Lisa Grant asked. "Perhaps 1,000,000 years," the Vorthan replied without emotion. "Maybe longer. Violent evolution is very difficult to overcome." The chamber fell silent. The humans looked at each other, communicating without words the way people do who have worked together for a long time. Finally, Lisa Grant stood up. She straightened her jacket and looked around the chamber. "Honored representatives," she said in a clear, strong voice, "we thank you for your consideration. However, We must respectfully decline both options." Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. No species had ever rejected the Council's judgment before. "We cannot accept modifications to our fundamental nature," Lisa continued. "And we cannot accept permanent isolation from the galactic community. We believe that the Council has misunderstood what humanity truly represents." Captain Morrison stood beside her. "We request that the Council reconsider its decision. We are willing to provide additional information about human society and culture. We believe that a better understanding would change your perspective." War Master Corvin slammed his fist on his chair. "There is nothing to reconsider. You are predators. Predators cannot be trusted in civilized society." Dr. Walsh stepped forward. "But what if you're wrong? What if there are things about humanity that you don't understand? Shouldn't we at least try to communicate better before making such permanent decisions?" Ambassador Zixthala looked around the chamber. She could see that the other representatives were becoming angry. They saw the human response as defiance, maybe even a threat. "The decision is final," she said sadly. "You have 72 standard hours to reconsider our offer. If you do not accept pacification or isolation by that time, the Council will take enforcement action to protect member species." "Enforcement action?" Lisa Grant asked. "Your ships will be forced back to your solar system," War Master Corvin explained. "If you resist, you will be stopped by whatever means necessary." The threat was clear. If humans didn't submit, they would face the combined military might of 12 advanced civilizations. Captain Morrison nodded slowly. "We understand your position. We will return to Earth and deliver your message to our leaders." As the humans prepared to leave, Dr. Walsh turned back. "May I ask one question? In all your history, has the Council ever been wrong about a species?" The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Ambassador Zixthala answered. "Young species often ask that question. The answer is no. The Council's assessments have always proven accurate. Violent species remain violent. It is the way of nature." "Then perhaps," Dr. Walsh said quietly, "it's time for nature to surprise you." The humans left the chamber with their heads held high. But inside, they were all thinking the same thing. They were about to face the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy. Earth had 72 hours to decide its fate. As their ship undocked from Harmony Prime, Captain Narration activated the emergency communication system. A message would reach Earth in 6 hours. By the time the sun rose on Earth, every leader on the planet would know that humanity faced a choice between surrender and war. The U's horizon turned toward home, carrying news that would change everything. Behind them, the Council representatives began planning for what they assumed would be Earth's inevitable submission. None of them imagined that humanity might choose a third option. The emergency message from Captain Morrison reached Earth just as the sun was setting in New York. President Maria Santos was having dinner with her family when her secure phone rang. The call changed everything. Within 2 hours, every major leader on Earth was connected by video link. The Global Defense Council had never met for such a serious crisis. President Santos sat at the head of the table in the White House Situation Room. Around her, screens showed leaders from every continent. Prime Minister Chun of the Asian Defense Alliance looked tired. It was early morning in Beijing. "So they want to change our brains or lock us in our own solar system," he said. "These are not the actions of a peaceful council." President Okafor of the African Unity spoke next. Her voice was calm but angry. "They judge us before they truly know us. This is not justice. This is fear." Admiral Ryan Clark stood near a large screen showing star charts. He had been studying the military situation since the message arrived. "The technical assessment is not good," he said honestly. "The Council has 12 species with technology centuries ahead of ours. Their weapons and ships are far superior to anything we have. But we're not going to just give up, said General Martinez from the European Space Coalition. There has to be something we can do. President Santos looked around the room at the faces on the screens. These were leaders who had spent there, careers competing with each other. Their nations had different languages, different cultures, different ways of thinking. But right now, they were all thinking the same thing. Admiral Clark, Santos said, what would happen if we chose to fight? Clark touched his tablet and new images appeared on the screens. In a straight military conflict, we would lose quickly. But that assumes they fight the same way we do. The question is, do they understand how humans actually wage war? Defense. Minister Kim from the Pacific Alliance leaned forward. What do you mean? Every species in the Council comes from peaceful worlds, Clark explained. They developed advanced technology in stable environments. They've had very few conflicts in their history. Most of them have never seen real warfare. The hegemony fights wars, General Martinez pointed out. Yes, but even their conflicts are formal and rule-based, Clark replied. They fight like ancient knights, with honor codes and scheduled battles. They've never faced an enemy that adapts quickly or uses unconventional tactics. President Santos felt an idea forming in her mind. Admiral, what if we don't fight them the way they expect? What are you thinking? Admiral Clark asked. They think we're mindlessly violent, Santos said. They expect us to attack them like wild animals. What if instead we show them what human military doctrine really looks like? The room was quiet as everyone considered this. Finally, Prime Minister Chun spoke. You want to demonstrate our capabilities rather than hide them? Exactly, Santos replied. They're afraid of us because they don't understand us. Maybe it's time to show them what they're really dealing with. Admiral Clark was already working on his tablet. It could work, he said slowly. Instead of preparing for a defensive war, we coordinate a show of force. Demonstrate human military principles in action. But where? Asked President Okafor. We can't do this near Earth. If something goes wrong, we could bring their fleet right to our home. Clark touched the star chart, Proxima Centauri. It's the closest star system to Earth, but it's still far enough away to be safe. The system has some asteroids and space debris we could use for training exercises. Defense Minister Kim looked skeptical. You want to invite them to watch us practice war games? Not war games, Clark corrected. Real military operations. Peacekeeping. Missions, humanitarian aid, rescue operations. Show them that human military doctrine isn't about destroying enemies. It's about protecting people and solving problems. General Martinez smiled. I like it. We show them coordination, precision, and restraint. Prove that our strength comes from discipline, not aggression. How long would we need to prepare? President Santos asked. 1 week, Clark said confidently. Every spacefaring nation has ships that could reach Proxima Centauri. We've been planning joint operations for years. This would just be the first time we actually did it. President Okafor raised her hand. What about the technology gap? Our ships are still much slower and less advanced than theirs. Dr. Susan Carter spoke up from her position at the science table. She had been quietly working on her tablet throughout the meeting. I might have a solution for that, she said. My team has been studying the sensor data from the Council ships at Harmony Prime. We've identified some basic principles of their technology. Can we copy it? Santos asked. Not exactly, Carter replied, but we can improve our existing technology using similar principles. Better shields, more efficient engines, enhanced communication systems. Nothing revolutionary, but enough to make our ships more impressive. How long? Clark asked. 72 hours for basic improvements, Carter said. Maybe less if every space agency works together. Santos looked around the room again. So we're all agreed? Instead of choosing between surrender and defeat, we choose to educate them? One by one, every leader nodded. Prime Minister Chun was the first to speak. The Asian Defense Alliance will contribute every available ship. The African Unity Fleet is ready, President Okafor added. European Space Coalition ships will be there. General Martinez confirmed. Defense Minister Kim smiled. The Pacific Alliance has 12 ships that can make the journey. And the American Space Command will coordinate overall operations. Admiral Clark said. President Santos felt a strange emotion. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth was working toward the same goal. Not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. Admiral Clark, you have full authority to organize this operation. Dr. Carter, you have unlimited resources for the technology upgrades. Clark stood up straighter. I'll need someone to lead the fleet operations. Captain Morrison is still at the edge of council space. Promote him, Santos said immediately. Admiral Morrison can command the demonstration fleet. What about the message to the council? Lisa Grant asked. She had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now she looked determined. We send them an invitation, Santos replied. Tell them they're welcome to observe a demonstration of human military capabilities. Let them see what they're really afraid of. Dr. Carter was already making calculations. If we start now, we can have upgraded ships reaching Proxima Centauri in 6 days. That gives us 1 day to set up before the council deadline. Will they come? General Martinez asked. They'll come, Clark said with certainty. They're too curious not to. They want to see what primitive humans think they can accomplish with inferior technology. Santos smiled. Then let's give them a show they'll never forget. The next 6 days were the busiest in human history. Every spaceport on Earth worked around the clock. Ships launched every few hours, carrying personnel and equipment to Proxima Centauri. Dr. Carter's technology teams performed miracles, installing new systems on ships while they flew through space. Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison received his promotion and new orders while still waiting at the edge of council space. Instead of returning to Earth in defeat, he was ordered to proceed to Proxima Centauri and take command of the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. The UES Horizon arrived at Proxima Centauri 2 days before the deadline. Morrison stared at the view screen in amazement. Ships from every Earth nation were already there, working together to prepare for something unprecedented. Colonel Danny Phillips had arrived with the advance team. He met Morrison at the airlock of the command ship. Admiral, he said with a grin, welcome to humanity's first joint interstellar operation. Morrison looked out at the growing fleet. American ships worked alongside Chinese vessels. European craft coordinated with African units. Ships that had been built by nations that were sometimes rivals now moved in perfect formation. How many ships total? Morrison asked. 147, Phillips replied. Every major spacefaring nation contributed. We even have ships from countries that just launched their first satellites last year. And the message to the council? Sent yesterday, Phillips confirmed. Dr. Carter broadcast it on all frequencies. The council will know we're here and what we're planning. Morrison nodded. He activated his communication system and sent a message that would reach every ship in the fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Morrison. In 3 days, representatives from 12 alien civilizations will arrive to observe our demonstration. They think they know what human military power looks like. Let's show them they're wrong. As the message went out, something remarkable happened. Every ship in the fleet responded at exactly the same time. Lights flashed in synchronized patterns. It was a simple signal, but it sent a clear message to anyone watching. Humanity was no longer divided. For the first time in their history, they were truly united. And they were about to show the galaxy what that meant. The Council's observation fleet arrived at Proxima Centauri, exactly on time. War Master Corvin stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the human formation through powerful sensors. What he saw confused him. The human ships were arranged in neat rows, but not like any military formation he had ever seen. Instead of pointing weapons at his fleet, they seemed to be organized for some kind of work project. Supply ships moved between larger vessels. Small craft darted back and forth, carrying equipment and personnel. "This makes no sense," Corvin muttered to his tactical officer. "Where are their battle formations? Why aren't they preparing for combat?" Beside him, Ambassador Zixthala watched her own sensors with growing confusion. "Perhaps they realize they cannot win and are preparing to surrender," she suggested hopefully. The crystalline Vorthan observer pulsed with analytical light. Negative. Energy readings suggest they are preparing for large-scale operations, but the purpose is unclear. Admiral Morrison sat in the command center of the U-East Unity, the largest ship in the human fleet. Around him, officers from 12 different nations worked at stations monitoring every aspect of the operation. It was the first time in history that humans from so many countries had served together on one ship. "Admiral," reported Captain Sarah Lewis from her station, "all ships report ready. Phase 1 can begin on your command." Morrison activated the fleet communication system. "All vessels, this is Admiral Morrison. Operation Human Spirit is now active. Remember, we're not just representing our individual nations today. We're representing all of humanity. Make us proud." He switched to the general broadcast frequency that the Council ships could monitor. "Council Observation Fleet, this is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You are welcome to observe our demonstration of human military doctrine. Please maintain your current position for safety reasons." On the Council flagship, War Master Corvin snorted. Safety reasons? What could their primitive weapons do to our ships? He was about to find out how wrong he was to think this was about weapons. The human demonstration began with something the Council had never seen before. Instead of ships moving to attack positions, they spread out in a complex pattern that covered the entire asteroid field of the Proxima system. Captain Sarah Lewis led the first phase. Her squadron of 12 ships approached a large asteroid that the humans had designated as a disaster site. "All units, we have reports of survivors trapped on the surface. Standard rescue protocols are in effect." The Council observers watched in amazement as the human ships performed a perfect rescue operation. Landing craft descended to the asteroid surface, while other ships provided cover and support. Medical teams set up treatment areas. Engineering crews cleared debris and created safe zones. "What are they doing?" Ambassador Zixthala asked. "There are no survivors on that asteroid." The Vorthan observer was running constant analysis. They appeared to be simulating a humanitarian rescue mission. But the precision and coordination are remarkable. Each ship knows exactly what to do without constant communication. War Master Corvin was less impressed. Rescue missions are not warfare. Any civilized species can save lives. Show us their weapons, their attack strategies. As if responding to his request, the demonstration moved to Phase 2. Captain Ben Foster took command of a mixed squadron that included ships from 6 different nations. They approached another asteroid, this one designated as a hostile urban environment. "Civilian evacuation in progress," Foster announced over the cone. "Enemy forces are holding hostages in the central structure. Rules of engagement are in effect. No action that risks civilian casualties." The Council observers leaned forward as they watched the human ships execute an urban assault. But again, what they saw was nothing like they expected. Instead of massive firepower and overwhelming force, the humans used surgical precision and careful coordination. Small teams infiltrated the simulated building while other units created distractions. Medical teams stood ready to treat both friend and enemy casualties. The entire operation was designed to minimize damage and protect innocent lives. Impressive restraint, admitted the Vorthen. Most military species would simply destroy the entire structure. Restraint is weakness, Corvin replied, but his voice lacked conviction. He was beginning to see that human military tactics were more sophisticated than he had assumed. Lieutenant Amy Johnson led Phase 3 of the demonstration. Her specialty was hostage rescue, and she commanded a team that moved like dancers through a complex scenario. Multiple ships worked together to surround a facility, create safe evacuation routes, and neutralize threats without harming innocent people. The Council watched human soldiers storm a position with weapons that could have killed everyone inside. Instead, they used non-lethal force to subdue enemies and immediately provided medical care to anyone who was injured. It was a level of discipline that none of the Council species had ever seen. How do they maintain such control in combat? Zix Thala wondered aloud. Our own security forces sometimes lose discipline under stress. Training, the Vorthen observed. Extensive, repeated training until proper behavior becomes automatic. But the real surprise came in Phase 4. General Chris Martinez coordinated the most complex part of the demonstration. In just 6 hours, the human fleet established a complete forward operating base in space. They assembled habitats, medical facilities, communication centers, and supply depots from components carried by different ships. More importantly, they began distributing humanitarian aid to a simulated refugee population. Ships that had been fighting mock battles an hour earlier were now delivering food, medicine, and shelter to people in need. This is impossible, Corvin said, staring at his sensors. No military force can transition so quickly from combat operations to humanitarian work. Yet they are doing it, the Vorthen pointed out, and with remarkable efficiency. Dr. Susan Carter's voice came over the communication channel. She was broadcasting from the main command ship. Council observers, we hope you are learning something about human military philosophy. Our forces are not designed primarily to destroy enemies. They are designed to protect people and solve problems. She activated a holographic display that showed the Council ships a detailed explanation of human military doctrine. Human warfare is based on specific principles. First, military action should serve a political purpose. Second, civilians must be protected whenever possible. Third, conflicts should be resolved with the minimum necessary force. Fourth, soldiers have a duty to help people, not just fight enemies. The Council observers listened to this explanation with growing amazement. War Master Corvin had never heard of military forces with such restrictions. In hegemony warfare, victory was the only goal. Protecting enemies or civilians was considered weakness. The demonstration continued for 12 hours. The human fleet showed their ability to perform every type of military operation: reconnaissance, assault, defense, rescue, evacuation, medical support, engineering, logistics, and peacekeeping. Every operation was performed with the same themes: precision, coordination, restraint, and protection of innocent life. The final phase was the most impressive. Admiral Morrison ordered a complete military withdrawal and humanitarian setup. In 4 hours, the human fleet transformed from a fighting force into a relief organization. Ships that had been practicing combat were now providing medical care, distributing supplies, and helping simulated refugees rebuild their lives. Council. Observers, Morrison announced, this concludes our demonstration. We have shown you human military doctrine in action. Our strength comes not from our weapons, but from our discipline. Our power comes not from our ability to destroy, but from our commitment to protect. On the Council flagship, silence filled the bridge. War Master Corvin stared at the sensor readings, trying to understand what he had witnessed. These are not the actions of a violent species, he said quietly. Ambassador Zix Thala felt hope growing in her chest. Perhaps we were wrong about them. The Vorthan observer was processing vast amounts of data. Analysis suggests that human military effectiveness exceeds that of any council species. But their doctrine prioritizes protection over destruction. This is unprecedented. Corvin activated his communication system. Human fleet, this is War Master Corvin. We request permission to meet with your commanders. Morrison smiled. Permission granted, War Master. You are welcome aboard our command ship. As shuttlecraft began moving between the human and council fleets, something historic was happening. For the first time, the Galactic Council was beginning to understand that they had not encountered a violent predator species. They had encountered something much more dangerous to their enemies, and much more valuable to their friends. A species that had weaponized the concepts of cooperation and protection. The demonstration was over, but the real conversation was just beginning. War Master Corvin had never felt so confused in his long military career. He sat across from Admiral Morrison in the human command ship's meeting room. The walls showed pictures of Earth from space, and Corvin found himself staring at the blue and green world that had produced such unexpected warriors. Your demonstration has raised many questions, Corvin said slowly. My people have fought wars for thousands of years, but we have never seen military doctrine like yours. Admiral Morrison poured coffee for both of them. It was a simple gesture, but it showed the human habit of taking care of others, even during serious discussions. What questions do you have? War Master? Your soldiers could have destroyed every target in minutes, Corvin replied. Your weapons are more advanced than we thought, but instead you chose the most difficult path every time. Why? Morrison sipped his coffee before answering. Because the goal of human warfare isn't to destroy enemies. It's to create peace. Destroying everything might win a battle, but it doesn't solve the problems that cause the fighting. Dr. Elena Rodriguez entered the meeting room. She had been promoted to chief diplomatic scientist after Dr. Walsh returned to Earth to analyze the Council's technology. War Master, may I explain something about human evolution that might help? Corvin nodded. He was eager to understand these confusing creatures. Rodriguez sat down and activated a small holographic projector. Images of early humans appeared in the air above the table. The Council thinks humans are dangerous because we evolved as predators. That's true, but it's only half the story. The images showed human ancestors hunting in groups. Yes, we learned to hunt. But we also learned something else that was just as important. We learned to work together in ways no other species on our planet could match. New images appeared, showing humans caring for their sick, sharing food, and protecting their children. Human survival never depended on being the strongest individual. It depended on being part of the strongest group. We learned to sacrifice our own interests for the good of others. Corvin studied the images carefully. So your loyalty to the group is stronger than your individual desires? Usually, yes, Morrison replied. A human soldier will risk his life to save people he has never met. A human pilot will crash her own ship to prevent civilian casualties. This isn't weakness, War Master. It's the source of our greatest strength. Rodriguez continued the explanation. The Council was right that humans can be very violent. But our violence is almost always directed at protecting others, not conquering them. We fight hardest when we're defending something we care about. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from Harmony Prime. Ambassador Zix Thala appeared on the main screen, looking more excited than Corvin had ever seen her. War Master, she said quickly, you need to return immediately. The Council is meeting in emergency session. Every species wants to hear your report about the human demonstration. Corvin looked at Morrison. Will you come with me? I think the Council needs to hear from humans directly. Of course, Morrison replied. But I want to bring Dr. Rodriguez as well. The Council needs to understand the science behind what they observed. 2 days later, the Great Chamber at Harmony Prime was packed with representatives from all 12 Council species. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of fear and suspicion, there was curiosity and excitement. Ambassador Zix Thala called the session to order. War Master Corvin will present his observations of the human military demonstration. Corvin stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the chamber. Honored representatives, he began, I have witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans have developed military capabilities that exceed any Council species, but their doctrine is focused on protection rather than conquest. Murmurs of surprise filled the chamber. The insect-like Clixer clicked their mandibles in amazement. The crystalline Vorthan pulsed with analytical interest. Furthermore, Corvin continued, human military effectiveness comes from their ability to coordinate multiple units from different backgrounds. They have weaponized cooperation itself. The Vorthan representative spoke up. Our analysis confirms War Master Corvin's report. Human military doctrine incorporates mathematical principles of game theory, systems optimization, and resource management that we have never seen applied to warfare. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. Honored Council members, may I address a fundamental misunderstanding about human nature? Zix Thala nodded. Please proceed, Dr. Rodriguez. Rodriguez activated her holographic display again. The Council has been afraid of human aggression, but aggression and violence are not the same thing. Human aggression is typically directed towards solving problems and protecting others. She showed images of human cities, human art, and human families. We compete with each other constantly, but that competition drives us to improve. We argue and disagree, but we use those disagreements to find better solutions. Our politics are loud and messy, but they prevent the buildup of tensions that lead to major wars. The chamber was completely silent as representatives tried to understand this new perspective on humanity. Most importantly, Rodriguez continued, humans have developed something that no other known species possesses, the ability to extend protective loyalty to individuals outside our own species. This statement caused an uproar in the chamber. Several representatives started talking at once. Impossible, declared the Sorok delegate. No species can truly care about aliens. Actually, Morrison interrupted, Dr. Walsh has been studying your species for months. He genuinely cares about your welfare and wants to learn about your culture, not because it benefits him, but because he finds you fascinating and worthy of respect. The Clixer representative clicked thoughtfully. Our observations suggest this is accurate. The human scientist showed genuine concern for species he had never encountered before. Ambassador Zix Thala felt both her hearts beating quickly. Dr. Rodriguez, are you suggesting that humans could form protective bonds with Council species? Not just protective bonds, Rodriguez replied. Partnership bonds. Humans work best when we're part of a team that includes different types of people with different skills. We think a team that included different alien species would be even more effective. War Master Corvin stepped forward again. There is something else the Council must consider. I have studied human military history. When humans fight against oppression or injustice, they are nearly unstoppable. But when they fight to protect others, they become absolutely unstoppable. He paused to let this sink in before continuing. The Galactic Council has many peaceful member species, but we have few effective ways to stop conflicts when they arise. Our own military forces are limited because most of us have little experience with warfare. What are you suggesting? Asked the Vorthan. I am suggesting that we have found the solution to one of our greatest problems, Corvin replied. Humans could serve as the Council's peacekeeping force. Their military doctrine is perfectly designed for stopping conflicts while protecting innocent lives. Morrison smiled. Actually, War Master, we were going to suggest something similar. But we don't want to be your military servants. We want to be your military partners. He activated his own display, showing plans that had been developed during the flight to Harmony Prime. We propose the creation of the Galactic Peacekeeping Academy. Human instructors would work with volunteers from all Council species to develop new approaches to conflict resolution. Mixed species units, Rodriguez added, combining human tactical thinking with alien technological capabilities and cultural perspectives. The chamber erupted in excited discussions. Representatives talked rapidly in their various languages, trying to understand the implications of what they were hearing. Finally, Ambassador Zixthala called for order. The Council will need time to consider this proposal, but I can say that the perspective on humanity has changed dramatically. She looked directly at Morrison and Rodriguez. 3 months ago, we saw humans as a threat to galactic peace. Today, we see you as potentially the key to achieving lasting peace. Morrison stood up. Ambassador, if I may, humanity would like to make a formal request. Please proceed. We no longer wish to apply for membership in the Galactic Council as a junior species seeking guidance, Morrison said clearly. Instead, we offer to join as equal partners, bringing our unique capabilities to help solve problems that have challenged the galaxy for thousands of years. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a species was accepted into the Council, not despite their military capabilities, but because of them. 6 months later, the first class of the Galactic Peacekeeping Academy graduated. The mixed species units deployed to their first mission, a system where 2 member species had been fighting for decades over resource rights. Admiral Morrison watched the deployment from his new office on Harmony Prime. Through his window, he could see human ships working alongside alien vessels, carrying hope to places that had known only conflict. Captain Sarah Lewis's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, the first peacekeeping mission is reporting success. Both sides have agreed to mediation. Morrison smiled. Humanity had finally found their place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or servants, but as guardians.